Who was Bathsheba? If you've read the Bible, you probably remember her as the woman David saw bathing and who became one of the central characters in one of the most dramatic chapters in biblical history. But Bathsheba's story goes far beyond this remarkable episode. She was a woman who lived in a time of kings, wars, and prophets, and her life was profoundly impacted by the choices of one of the most powerful men in Israel, King David. In this video, we'll dive into the untold story of Bathsheba. You'll discover who she was before she met David, how her life changed dramatically after meeting the king, and what her crucial role was as the mother of Solomon, one of Israel's greatest leaders. But more than that, we'll explore the complexities of this story, the choices, the consequences, and the lessons it teaches us today. Why is Bathsheba's story so intriguing? Because it's not just a story about sin and redemption, but also about power, survival, and the role of women in a male-dominated world. And throughout this video, I promise to reveal surprising details that will change the way you view this fascinating character. So get ready for an exciting journey through the life of Bathsheba, the woman who was so much more than just David's wife and Solomon's mother. Shall we begin? Before she became a central figure in the story of King David, Bathsheba was an ordinary woman, living a life that seemed destined for anonymity. Daughter of Eliam and wife of Uriah the Hittite, she belonged to a world where women rarely had a voice. Uriah, her husband, was a loyal soldier, a man of honor who served in the army of Israel. Bathsheba lived like many other women of the time, taking care of the home, waiting for her husband to return from battle, and dreaming of a peaceful future. But who was Bathsheba really? In addition to being the wife of a warrior, she was a woman in a rigidly patriarchal society where a woman's worth was often measured by her ability to bear children and maintain family honor. Her name, which means daughter of the oath, may have been a reflection of the expectations placed on her from birth. However, her life was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would place her at the center of one of the most controversial narratives in the Bible. While Uriah was fighting on the borders of Israel, Bathsheba went about her daily life, oblivious to the fact that her destiny was about to collide with that of a king. But before David came into the picture, she was just an ordinary woman, bound by the traditions and constraints of her time. A woman whose story, until then silent, was about to echo through the centuries. It was a night like any other in Jerusalem. King David, instead of being on the battlefield as was his duty, was walking on the roof of the palace. It was then that his eyes fixed on something that would forever change the course of his life and the history of Israel. In the distance, he saw a woman bathing. It was Bathsheba, a stunning beauty who seemed to glow even from a distance. At that moment, something ignited in David's heart, an irresistible but also dangerous attraction. Without hesitation, David sent servants to find out who the woman was. They returned with the answer: "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Knowing that she was married did not deter him. On the contrary, the information only seemed to fuel his desire. David, the man after God's own heart, made a decision that would tarnish his legacy. He summoned her to the palace. Bathsheba obeyed. Standing alone before the king, she had no choice. What followed was an act of adultery, a sin that would echo for generations. In that moment, they both crossed a line that could not be undone. David, the powerful king, and Bathsheba, the woman who had until then lived a simple life, were now united by a secret that would have devastating consequences. Their encounter was not just a moment of passion, but the beginning of a tragedy that would shake the kingdom of Israel. David and Bathsheba's sin soon brought with it an unexpected and irreversible consequence. Bathsheba was pregnant. The news must have echoed like thunder in the king's heart. In a society where honor was everything, an out-of-wedlock pregnancy would not only tarnish his reputation, but also put Bathsheba in mortal danger. David, accustomed to solving problems with brilliant strategies, decided to act. But this time, his plan would not be one of wisdom, but of desperation. He ordered Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, to be brought home from the battle. Under the pretense of wanting to know how the battles were going, David received Uriah at the palace. He hoped that after a while at home, Uriah would sleep with his wife, and the pregnancy could be attributed to him. But Uriah was a man of unbreakable principles. While his companions were on the battlefield, he refused to enjoy the comforts of his home and the company of his wife. "The ark, Israel and Judah are intense, and my lord Joab is encamped in the field," he said. "How can I go home and eat and drink and lie with my wife?" Uriah slept at the palace gate, loyal to the end. His act of integrity completely thwarted David's plan. Now the king was cornered, and his sin was about to be exposed. The situation, which was already serious, was about to turn into an even greater tragedy. With his plan foiled, David found himself at a dark crossroads. Bathsheba's pregnancy was a secret that could not be kept for long, and Uriah, with his unwavering loyalty, was an obstacle that needed to be removed. It was then that David made the darkest decision of his life. He wrote a letter to Joab, the commander of his army, ordering that Uriah be placed in the front lines of battle where the danger was greatest. And to ensure that the plan would not fail, David delivered the letter into the hands of Uriah himself without him knowing that it carried his death sentence. Uriah, the man of integrity, returned to war with orders for his own death. In battle, he was placed in the most dangerous spot, where the enemies were most fierce. And, as David had planned, Uriah fell in battle. News of his death reached the palace, and Bathsheba, now a widow, went into mourning. She wept for Uriah, the husband who had been so cruelly betrayed. After the period of mourning, David brought Bathsheba into the palace and took her as his wife. The sin had been covered up, but the stain on David's heart and the kingdom of Israel ran deep. What seemed like a quick fix would turn into a scar that would forever mark the history of David and Bathsheba. David's sin seemed to have been covered, but nothing escapes God's eyes. The Lord sent the prophet Nathan to the king, and he came with a story that would shake David to his core. Nathan told a parable about a rich man who, despite having many flocks of sheep, stole a poor man's only sheep to serve to a visitor. David, hearing the story, was indignant. "This man deserves to die," he declared, not realizing that he was judging himself. Then Nathan looked the king in the eye and said, "You are the man." With cutting words, the prophet reminded David of all that God had given him, the throne, the wealth, the victory over his enemies. And yet, David had taken Uriah's wife and ordered his death. The rebuke was blunt and devastating. "Why have you despised the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his sight?" David, faced with the truth, did not try to justify himself. He broke down in repentance, confessing, "I have sinned against the Lord." But the consequences of his sin were already in motion. Nathan announced that the sword would never depart from the house of David, and that the son born of his adultery would not live. Despite divine forgiveness, the seeds of sin would bring a bitter harvest. The story of David and Bathsheba was now an eternal lesson in the cost of error and the mercy of God. The son of David and Bathsheba was born amidst a whirlwind of guilt and pain. The child, the fruit of a sin that had shaken the kingdom, came into the world carrying a tragic destiny. Soon after his birth, the prophet Nathan had announced that the boy would not live, and this prophecy hung over the palace like a shadow. Shortly thereafter, the child fell gravely ill. David, consumed with anguish, fasted, prayed, and fell prostrate before God, begging for mercy. For 7 days he refused to eat or get up from the ground, while Bathsheba, at his side, endured the silent grief of a mother watching her child waste away. The palace, once filled with celebration, now echoed with the sound of wailing. But despite their pleas, the child died. The servants, afraid to tell David, whispered among themselves, wondering how he would react to the news. To everyone's surprise, David got up, washed himself, dressed himself, and went to the house of the Lord to worship. When asked about his change in behavior, he replied, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, for I said to myself, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and the child will live. But now that the child is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring the child back?" Bathsheba, however, bore the burden of her loss in silence. The child's death was a bitter reminder of the consequences of sin, but also a moment that revealed the complexity of faith and human grief. The story of David and Bathsheba would continue, but the scar of their loss would never fade. After the tragedy that marked the birth of her first son, Bathsheba gave birth to Solomon, a child who would bring light to a dark chapter in her life. The name Solomon, which means peace, seemed to herald a new beginning. But Bathsheba was not just a mother. She was a strategic woman who understood the complexities of the royal court and the weight of power. As Solomon grew older, Bathsheba had a profound influence on his life. She not only prepared him for the challenges of kingship, but also became a staunch advocate for his destiny. When David grew old and the issue of succession to the throne became uncertain, Bathsheba acted wisely and courageously. Alerted by the prophet Nathan to the plans of Solomon's half-brother Adonijah to make himself king, she went directly to David. With respect and determination, Bathsheba reminded the king of his promise that Solomon would next rule Israel. Her words, coupled with Nathan's support, convinced David to act immediately. He ordered that Solomon be anointed king, thus securing the future of the kingdom. Bathsheba, who had begun her journey as an ordinary woman, was now the mother of the man who would build the temple in Jerusalem and become one of Israel's greatest kings. Her story was ultimately one of redemption and purpose. Bathsheba has gone down in history not only as the woman who sparked David's passion, but as the mother of Solomon, one of Israel's greatest kings. Her legacy is indelible. Through Solomon, she became part of the lineage that would culminate in the Messiah. But who was Bathsheba really? A victim of circumstances beyond her control, or a woman who knew how to navigate a world dominated by men with cunning? Her story is complex. She was torn from an ordinary life and thrown into the center of a plot filled with power, betrayal, and redemption. While some see her as a passive figure, others see her as a silent protagonist who used her influence to secure the future of her son, and consequently, of a nation. Bathsheba not only survived the turmoil of her time, but emerged as a key player in the divine plan. Today, her story invites us to reflect on themes such as resilience, forgiveness, and the role of women in history. Bathsheba reminds us that, even amidst the consequences of other people's choices, it is possible to find purpose and leave a legacy that transcends time. Her life is a testament to the fact that God can redeem even the most troubled stories, transforming pain into meaning and failure into triumph. The story of Bathsheba is one of the most fascinating and complex narratives in the Bible. It begins with an act of sin and betrayal, but evolves into a journey of redemption and purpose. Bathsheba, the woman who was plucked from a humble life and thrust into the center of a royal plot, became the mother of Solomon, one of Israel's greatest kings and a crucial link in the lineage that would lead to the Messiah. Her life teaches us that even amid the consequences of wrong choices, God can write a story of restoration. As we reflect on her journey, we are confronted with profound themes: the weight of sin, the importance of repentance, the power of redemption, and the often underestimated role of women in biblical history. Bathsheba was not just a victim or a supporting character. She was a woman who, despite her circumstances, found her place in the divine plan. What do you think of Bathsheba's story? Was she a victim, a protagonist, or a bit of both? Leave a comment and share your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos, where we will continue exploring fascinating stories from the Bible. Until then, may Bathsheba's life inspire us to seek redemption and purpose, even in the midst of our own struggles.